So welcome to another episode of the Mind to Lead podcast. And today I am absolutely honoured as I'm sat down with an amazing entrepreneur, business owner, Andy Fell. Good to have you here, Andy.
It's fantastic to be here.
So for those that don't know who you are, can you just give us a bit of an overview into who is Andy and what's brought you to this point in time right now?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I spent 30 years in financial services, 20 years in the UK, predominantly running big people-centric distribution businesses, so branch networks, contact centres and the like. And then I had the good fortune to be made redundant at the height of the GFC. And I'm a massive believer that there's opportunity in everything as long as you're willing to look for it. And if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have relocated with myself, my amazing wife and 3 of our 4 children out here to Australia. So I spent another 8 or so years in financial services here between Westpac and St.George banks, initially in Queensland, then a number of years in Sydney before I moved back to the Gold Coast. And again, similar kind of lines, working, running branch networks essentially, and teams of relationship managers, both in business banking and also in private banking. And then I turned 50. And I took what I call the Sir Richard Branson test. I imagined being 90 years old, sitting in a rocking chair, looking back on my life and saying to myself, I didn't want to be saying to myself, if only I'd done this, I wish I'd done that, I could have done the other, I should have done that. So I decided, it was time to move out of financial services and set up my own business. So I set up a business centered around 4 pillars, which is speaking, coaching, business consultancy and more traditional leadership talent development, called Gift 631. And 3 years later, here I am.
Amazing. Right, there's a lot to pull apart there. But first of all, Gift 361. How did you come up with that name?
Yeah, well, Gift 631. So I grew up at a property called 631 Kenilworth Road. And my grandfather was my first grade teacher. And he left school at 12. He was a servant in a big country house in England. And he always taught me to live life with gratitude, to live life with a generosity of spirit, to live life with a servant's heart, to always do people a good turn. So just put good out into the universe and never worry if you get it back or not. Probably the only practical thing he ever taught me was, never make a decision when you're tired. He used to say to me, things will always look better in the morning. And when I was thinking about my business, I was thinking, about my grandfather and his legacy. And I decided it'd be beautiful to put 631 in the name of the business. Then one day when I was spending some time with myself, I was thinking about 631, 631, 631, and I actually flipped it around. So 136 is one of my goal-achieving frameworks that help people really set one big, hairy, audacious goal, but break it down into 3 sub-goals, and then break it down again into the 6 next best actions. So it's very manageable, and you just focus on the action level. So that's the 631 part, and obviously the flip of that. And gift, well, there's 3 things I really thought about I wanted my business to be around. One was transformation, one was inspiration, and one was growth. So personal, team, and business. And I'd got down TIG 631, but it just didn't get me. And then one day I was talking with someone who became one of my first coaching clients, and he was like, well, Andy, I get to the office really early in the morning, I stay there really late at night, I'm earning a lot of money, but I have no relationship with my partner, I have no relationship with my kids, even the dog doesn't want to go for a walk with me anymore. He says, I just lack fulfillment. Yeah. So I went home that night and I journaled just the word fulfillment. And I woke up the next morning and literally said to myself, wow, it's a gift. It's not TIG 631, it's Gift 631. So growth, inspiration, fulfillment and transformation. And that's really what I look to bring to all my clients.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. I think that just everything you just said there, I completely agree with. And your granddad sounds like an absolutely amazing human being, like to teach the whole gratitude movement. Yeah. I think that even in times of chaos and uncertainty, is always something to be grateful for, right? And
absolutely.
How important in your leadership training and your coaching is that whole gratitude piece for people?
Yeah, and so there's a couple of things. So first of all, I journal every single day. And it's part of what I call my Mozart time. And I believe highly successful people establish really well-defined winning habits and winning routines. So essentially that they build a success system for themselves. And gratitude and journaling are core to my own personal success system. So on my 50th birthday, my wife Leona gave me a book by a guy called Hal Elrod, and it was called The Morning Miracle. And Hal talks about how highly successful people have a really well-established morning routine. And I took the components of his morning routine, all of which I do, but I don't do them all first thing in the morning. And from very, very early in my leadership career, I decided that I could build a great life just by looking at successful people, not in financial services, just study successful people, whatever industry they were in, and just learn what they're doing, copy it, and then add my own 10% winning edge. As I matured a little bit, it was learn what they do, adapt it to my life, and then add my own 10% winning edge. And that's what I really did with Hal's Savers routine, which is about silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. As I say, I do all of those, but I don't do them all first thing in the morning. So he would start with silence. So leaping out of bed and meditating or centering yourself with your thoughts, or if you follow a particular faith, maybe some prayer. But I just couldn't do that because I'd get up in the morning and my brain would be buzzing. And I'd be sitting there looking to meditate, just thinking about what I had to achieve that day. So I created my own morning routine, which is about starting every day with some movement. Now, many of my clients will say, Andy, I'm not a swimmer, I'm not a runner, I'm not a gym junkie, I'm not a cyclist. And I say, that's cool. Just move. 20 minutes, just walk for 20 minutes. Stimulate the body, you stimulate the brain. And, a strong body, a strong mind is my viewpoint. And then I write down, and it's a process I call my mind cleanse. So I literally, everything that I'm thinking about that I've got to do, I just write it down. So it's a glorified things to do list essentially. But again, the brain can only hold 4 or 5 thoughts at any one time. So, we're kidding ourselves if we think we can hold everything up here. So I just clear my brain by writing everything down I've got to achieve. And then I meditate. I meditate for just 10 minutes a day. I just use the Calm app. And then I have an appointment with Mozart. So Mozart time for me is time for myself, by myself, with myself. No technology, no chance of disruption. It's just me, my journal, and my thoughts. And it's what I call my 4M routine. So movement, mind cleanse, meditation, Mozart time. Straight off the back of that, I'll then do an act of gratitude every single day. And when I was in leadership, in my diary every single day was 15 minutes of thank you time. And I believe every leader can find 15 minutes a day just to say thank you, to praise, to recognize, to celebrate achievements, maybe within their own business, but also from their customers, from their partners, their suppliers, just other people they know in business. So it was always part of my winning habits and routines that I've just carried through into Give 631. And then I time block. I just study Gary Keller, who wrote The One Thing, talks about having dedicated time to focus on the one thing. So I just time block. So by 10 o'clock in the morning, I've gone through a really well-established morning routine. I've done my acts of gratitude, and I've delivered the most important thing I've got to get done through that dedicated time block. And it just sets me up for success every single day.
I love it. And I have read that book, and again, it changed my life. And the stat in there that really I will never forget, when he talks about the 100 people, if you take 100 people start their working life, only 1 person will be wealthy, 5 will be financially secure, 36 will be reliant on their friends and family, 50 something will be dead, and then the rest will be dependent on everyone for the rest of their lives. And that stat, I thought, oh my God, I do not want to be in that 95%. I want to be in the 5%. It's all about having a level 10 life. And for some people listening to this, they might go, I wouldn't be able to spend an hour or all that time in the morning doing that. So what advice would you give for somebody who perhaps wants to start a morning routine or wants to start getting up early but doesn't know where to start?
Yeah, and I think, and again, it's not about, say, starting at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned, I think it was Brian Tracy or Jack Canfield said, there's a difference. There's a type of person who goes, that just won't work for me because, and they'll just add 5 excuses why it won't work for them. And then there'll be the type of person who'll say, well, that won't work for me because I'm a single mother, or I'm a busy executive, or whatever it might be, but this would. And I think that's the difference that makes a difference. And what I say to people is, I will share with you my whole winning system, all of my winning habits and routines. But like I said earlier, learn from them, adapt them to suit your own life, and then add your 10% winning edge. So for example, there are times where I literally just have to decouple the movement. I mean, I'll make sure I exercise and I move every single day, but say I'm away from home and I've got a really early meeting with a client, the other 3 M's is the sequence that I have to do each and every morning. Everyone should mind cleanse anyway, because it's just organising yourself. And like I say, it's like a glorified things to do list. The more pressure I'm under, I don't really feel stressed, but if there's any degree of anxiety in my life, there's 2 things that I will not give up: meditation and exercise. So the mind cleanse leads to the meditation. And as we both know, meditation is about reducing any feelings of anxiety or pressure, but also increasing focus and concentration and creating clarity. And that's where the Mozart time comes through, because concentrated thinking time, just me sitting with my thoughts without disruption, without technology, without worrying about inboxes or anything else, that's when the breakthrough comes. I just capture whatever's going on in my mind, in my journal, and over time, and I'm a great believer that greatness requires stillness. From stillness comes clarity. From clarity comes breakthrough, innovation, and success. And to me, if not the Savers routine, if not the 4M routine, well, create your own morning routine. But be in control of the start of your day, I think. And I meet people who go, oh my God, I get to the end of every single day and I go, what have I achieved today? I'm out of control from the first minute. And the minute you go to your inbox, you're working on someone else's priorities. You're not working on your own. And it's very, very rare that an email can't wait 60 minutes whilst you set yourself up for success.
I completely agree. And talking about habits that I want to go on to next, that was one of my bad habits when I first started my business. The first thing I used to do in the morning was check my emails. And I think you'll probably come across it as well. A lot of people do that. So it's about breaking that habit. But you're so right. If you start your day on everybody else's problems and demands, then you're not setting yourself up for success. And how important are routines and habits for leaders when they are helping and running teams and how they have to show up every day as the best they can be?
Sure.
How do you go about in your coaching coaching people to have morning routines and to have routines in place and good habits? Where would you start with somebody who didn't have anything in place right now?
Yeah, and I say to people, look, as a leader, the way you come in is the way they go out. You set the tone. Everybody boss watches.
I love that.
Whether it's actively or everyone's got an eye on the role modeling or otherwise of the leader. So this is where I say to everyone that I coach, so it's really important you're set up to meet the team, be it face-to-face, be it virtually. And obviously the more senior you become in business, when I was the general manager of the St.George Bank, I've got 2,000 people across 220 sites. I may only interact with some of them once a year, maybe twice a year. So it needs to be a really, really good interaction. You can't be even 5% off form when you're meeting members of your team, because that's the tone that they remember. It's set until the next time, which may be a few months down the line. Equally, it's as important through email or through video communication or anything else you're doing, that you're very centered to make sure that leadership's about communication. And I don't see enough leaders spending enough time really thinking about the quality and the clarity of the message. So that's how I tend to start with the people that I'm coaching, to say this is about setting, this is about self-leadership, but it absolutely flows through to how you lead and the tone that you set for those that you do lead. And that kind of ripple effect. I used to say leaders cast along shadows. Now I prefer to say leaders cast along light across their business. And I think it's really important that we think about all of our key interactions. And I see a lot of leaders who just rush from thing to thing to thing to thing. And I'm a great believer in the quality of the setup and the quality of the debrief. So people always say to me, if you had to name 2 or 3 absolute must-do winning habits, one would be the morning routine. The second one would be the quality of the setup. So spending a few minutes before any key interaction. So it might be running a team meeting, it might be delivering a message at a town hall or some other type of bigger forum. It might be just a one-on-one coaching kind of session or performance review, but to spend a few minutes really setting up. And I use visualization every single day, active visualization, which to me is about, we're sitting having a conversation, I'm visualizing the desired outcome that I want, but I'm also visualizing the best conversation that I've ever had. So I get into the ideal performance state before, I do whatever particular activity that I'm going to do. And then the second thing that I visualize is what I call, it's a bit of a glorified title, but more strategic visualization. So when I'm really thinking about the level 10 life, and I let my mind just dream into that level 10 life and just seeing, like where we are today, almost the life of my dreams. And, so moving between the two. And then on the other side of a key intervention, absolutely massive believer that there's one huge accelerator that gets missed by not just leaders, by the vast majority of people, and that's debriefing. And I have a success formula, which is success is having big clear goals, a champion's mindset. So success equals G plus M plus A. So big clear goals, a champion's mindset, and then taking consistent action in two ways. Some of the actions relate to the winning habits and systems, like using affirmations, like using visualization, like using debriefs. And then some of them are the actions that directly relate to the achievement of the goals. But the biggest accelerator is the debrief. So anyone who takes a particular action, so it might be a coaching session, it might be a team meeting, it might be a big conference presentation, that ability to debrief in the moment. And if all you're really looking for is the 1 to 2% improvement, if you apply that consistently, even over a 6-month period, you are so far ahead of where you were at the start of that particular period. Most people, a good friend of mine from the world of Formula One, a guy called Nat West, talks about you need to plan, you need to do, and you need to review. And Richard's world is, he's saying, all I'm doing is seeing more and more people, they just do, less and less planning, but virtually no reviewing. And that review stage for me is a real differentiator between winners debrief more than the average. I think it's as simple as that for me.
Is that, so when you say review, so one thing that I've started doing a couple of years ago and I really got into personal development is a lot of reflection. So at the end of every day I would sit and look at what I'd achieved that day and how I showed up that day and thought, how could I be better? Where did I fall short today? How important is that whole, I guess review and reflection are very similar, but is that the missing ingredient that you see a lot of leaders maybe go wrong when they set their goals? And
absolutely. I think stage one for me is doing an end of day debrief, which is where I was. Now I do an end of activity debrief. So if you can do it in the moment, at the end, right at the end of every significant activity, and to me it's a 2 to 3 minute, it's a really sharp process, and you're just reviewing, what went well, what didn't go so well, what should I do differently, what can I do more of, or just use the stop, start, continue. From that conversation, is there anything I should start, is there anything I should stop, anything I should continue, do more of, do differently, and then applying it. So if, say, you're in sales and you're seeing 5 clients a day, imagine if you're finding a 1 to 2% improvement between every single appointment. Over time, your performance is going to be significantly improved. So if you can do both, then I think you're in an absolutely fabulous position. But I do think you can call it reflection, you can call it reviewing, you can call it debriefing. It's the ability to just take a few moments to, again, center yourself, quieten your mind and just think through what you've done and how you can do it better.
I love that. So you've talked about goals as well in your 136 model. So can you talk a little bit about, because I think when people set goals, they tend to set them so high and then they don't get there and then they lose motivation, and then the goals being we're in March now. So people set these big goals at the start of the year and maybe by now they're nowhere near hitting their goals. So what's your winning formula? How do you go about setting your goals?
Yeah. First of all, I think the small percentage of people who actually set goals tend to set goals that are just a little bit of a stretch out of their comfort zone, which, first of all, your subconscious brain doesn't need to be resourceful or innovative. And also because it's just slightly outside your comfort zone, it's not a real stretch. So, if you do achieve the goal, it doesn't really take you that far in life. But it's too easy to give it up because it's not going to make a meaningful difference. So first of all, I encourage everyone to set what I call SMUT goals. When I used to go on training courses, people used to talk about SMART goals. And I love specific, I love measurable, I love time bound. A goal without a deadline is a wish. But I just achievable and realistic, just not for me. So I was working with this organisation in England called the Exeter, who are an insurance business. And we were talking about what I called unsmart goals. And they were like, Andy, we love the concept, but we don't like the term unsmart. Why don't you use SMUT goals? Anyway, and it's always stuck. So specific, measurable, unachievable, unrealistic, and time bound. So setting really, really big goals. And then why do most people, they don't even make a start because the brain is overwhelmed. They go, I'm so busy. How am I going to achieve that? And that's where the 1-3-6 process comes in, because it just breaks it down. And I say to people, all you need to do is focus on the action level. Take an action, repeat the action. Take an action, repeat the action. And people say, why 6 actions? I go, well, again, 26 is just too many. It's a laundry list. And you go, I'm really busy, I can't take on all these. And yet if you only have 2, say, you're not creating enough momentum. And the brain, success breeds success. The brain likes momentum. It just encourages you to keep going and keep going. So every time you take an action, you replace the action. Every time you achieve one of the sub goals, you replace it. And it just creates this flywheel that just gathers more and more momentum and takes you in the direction of the really big goal. And then I think it's doing all the sensible things that we both know, which is, first of all, I write my primary goal down every single day, along with my chosen affirmation. It's about sharing the goal publicly with at least 3 or 4 people that you trust, who are going to be the wind beneath your wings. They're also going to challenge you and stretch you, creating that level of accountability, creating visual representations of your goals absolutely all over the place. I have it on my phone, I have it on my laptop, I have it in my office. Is just a visual representation of my goals, and there's a vision board with the big picture type stuff. We like to create a song that we associate with a particular goal. My wife last year was going for a massive goal in her business, so she picked as her song The Climb by Miley Cyrus.
I love it.
And it was driving the rest of us bonkers. Like, she would play it 2 or 3 times a day, so we would do everything we could to help her achieve the goal, just so we didn't have to listen to the song anymore.
I love it.
But it's about all these little triggers. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, there's something that triggers you back, that associates you back with that goal. So it keeps it front of mind. So I think it's about having a system, but it's then about having all these ways that you reinforce the movement towards the goal. I actually am less concerned about the achievement of the goal. I'm more concerned about the action I take on the way to the achievement of the goal, because I know if I set a massive goal and get 3/4 of the way there, it's better than setting a really small goal and overachieving by 5 or 10%.
I love that. And you just touched on something really important. I want to just go back to, you've mentioned a lot about the people. You said people in that a lot. You mentioned your wife, and I reach out to 3 people and tell them my goal. How important is it to have good people around you? Like they say you're the average of the 5 people. Like, do you think, have you found that in your life, that who you surround yourself with, who you become? Like, there's lots of those messages. What's your take on that?
100%. So, I talk about the 4 mindsets. So the player mindset, the victim mindset, the cynical mindset, and the spectator mindset. And I'm an absolute believer in that. You're the sum of the 5 or 6 people that you spend most time with. So why would you pick anyone who leads with a victim, cynic, or spectator mindset? As a leader, I knew I was only as good as my team. And I'm a massive believer that A-grade players recruit A-grade players, and B-grade players recruit C-grade players. So if there's probably the only thing I did slowly in business was hiring. Really took my time to make sure I found who I believe was just the best possible person that I could afford in any particular role. So to me, leadership, like I said earlier, is about great communication, but it's absolutely about building great teams. And I think that's another key difference. And a team that's very diverse in every aspect, but diverse thinking is what you're really looking for.
I totally agree. I think we should touch upon the current climate now of what's all happening, because we've spoken a lot about habits and routines and the people that you surround yourself with. And obviously at the moment, we're going through something quite, it's going to be a huge thing that we look back in history. But there's obviously a lot of fear circulating at the moment from the media. And, I think that people are sort of waking up in the morning, not just checking their emails, checking the news. And what's your thoughts on where we are in terms of the whole leadership piece, the climate we're currently going through with the virus and everything else that's happening? Like, what's your advice to leaders right now?
Yeah. I mean, however tough, there is always opportunities. And if you go back through history, like the Great Depression in the United States was a period when so many, new businesses emerged, or in a particular field or a particular industry, a business would emerge from the pack. I mean, Kellogg's is a really well-spoken example of that they found the new opportunity where all of their competitors at the time were almost stepping back. So I think you have to lean into times like this. Now, all of us, we need to think about how we pivot and pivot to win. So some of the things that we did even yesterday may no longer be relevant to our clients, to the services that we want to provide today. As we both know, you've got to stay within your circle of influence. You have to control the controllables. And I see a lot of people who are panicking. There's a lot of groupthink or bandwagon thinking, as I like to call it, where everyone's just jumping on that bandwagon, and panic is causing panic, which is causing panic. So I believe the winning habits and the winning routines are even more important than ever. So for example, first of all, I want to keep myself physically fit, so more exercise, more meditation, and then I need to keep myself mentally fit. So things like my Mozart time have become even more important when I've thought about, what is my business of tomorrow going to look like? Where do I need to pivot? Why do I need to pivot? How is this more relevant to my clients than what I was offering previously to accommodate the period that we're in right now? So I think centering yourself, having absolute clarity of your purpose, of who you are and what matters most is so important, rather than knee-jerk reactions from here to here to here. I mean, it is going to be tough. I mean, we all know that. So therefore, you need to be more certain about who you are and the value of your business than ever before.
I totally agree. And for people listening to this and perhaps they are lacking in clarity at the moment, what sort of steps would you give them to help them on this journey that they're on now to find more clarity in their business and their life? Yeah,
I would suggest the absolute number one for me is spend 20 minutes less either on social media or just scrolling through news feeds, and reinvest that 20 minutes. Just get a journal, get a pen, turn off your phone, turn off every piece of technology that you have. Make sure you can't be interrupted and disruptive, and just spend some time, journaling, capturing your thoughts, thinking about, what matters most, and how you reinvent yourself if you need to reinvent yourself. Think about your superpowers as a person. What is it that you're really good at? What is it that you were put on this earth to do? This could be a great opportunity to create something around what you love, as opposed to just a job that you're doing. So that would be my first advice. I see people who are just getting caught up in the social media frenzy, and clearly there's some high quality news, but there's some less than high quality news. So it's reading the sources that I think are highly relevant. That should give you enough information about everything that's going on.
Yeah, it's no one saw this coming, and I just think that everybody is just kind of running around with their heads in the clouds, not knowing what to expect. I think it's that uncertainty that breeds the fear. So when you talk about the circle of influence, like, what things do you think that people should be focusing on right now in their circle of influence? What things can they be sort of doing every day to sort of maintain that calmness and that sort of peace of mind?
Yeah, and when I was setting up Gift 631, I went straight through what I called a 7P process. So I started with what is my purpose, and that would be the first thing, getting really, really clear on who I am and what really matters. And then as part of that, thinking about the legacy that I want to leave. And legacy is, how do I want to be remembered? How do I want to be celebrated? And again, if you're a leader, your job is to absorb the pressure, not just release the pressure through to everyone who works for you. And I think we'll see some poor leadership behaviours playing out where people, because they haven't got that clarity, they're not centred, they're not sure of themselves, they're just releasing that pressure through their system. So, purpose is about really having that level of certainty and really understanding who you are as a leader and as a person. Then I went to, well, okay, that's what really matters. Getting really clear on the plan. So, what is your 4, 5, 6 step response to everything that's going on now to keep yourself relevant as a leader, or if you're an entrepreneur, a small business, to keep your business relevant in such a rapidly changing situation. Then I constantly come back to the third P, which is what problems am I solving? And I think if you're always crystal clear on the problems that you're solving for others, whether you work in a big business or a small business, coming back to the problems that you're solving. And then I say to myself, there's 3 things I've got to bring every single day. I've got to bring passion. It's essential. You absolutely love what you do what you love. If you're a leader, that just flows through into your people. If you're an entrepreneur or you run a small business, again, all of your clients, everyone you interact with, either virtually now or through physical relationships, energy goes to energy. Yeah. And that's true for negative energy as well as positive energy. So you've got to bring passion, you've got to have that ability to be resilient and persevere, and then you've got to be patient. I think those are my middle 3 Ps, passion, perseverance, patience. And then my 7th P is pivot, knowing when you've just got to change direction. Yeah. And I think that's critical. I still see people trying to hang on to a business model or a particular service that was relevant 2 weeks ago that is just not relevant today.
Yeah. It's going to be a very interesting time. I think, I love everything you just said then. I just think, it's now time to go inwards, isn't it? So I think we're searching for outward answers, and I think if the more clarity, the more time you can spend in solitude, and we're going to be experiencing a lot of that right now. So it's seeing it as an opportunity to learn, to grow, to tool up, to, like you say, innovate, and think about what is coming, what is the future. And, I don't think this is going to be a unique event. I think, unfortunately, this may happen again at some point. And it's like, okay, what can we learn from this? What can we learn from this experience, and applying that now in the here and now?
I mean, the other one, you've just said it there, Georgie, the need to self-development. To self-develop. To me, self-development needs to be a daily event.
Agreed.
We've got to stay mentally sharp and fresh and curious. Obviously, everyone talks about the growth mindset, but to me, that's just about investing in yourself. Yeah. And I think there was too much complacency around. People would get the title manager or leader, and it's almost like they thought that's the end of the journey. I've made it. I'm a manager. I'm a leader. Actually, that's the start of the journey. Correct. And I think self-development is just so important.
I totally agree. Any sort of tips on that, like in terms of self-development? Like you've mentioned a couple of books that you've read, but what sort of, is there anything that you've done over the years that you've found that's worked really well for your personal development?
Yeah, so I don't believe in multitasking. But what I do believe in is learning whilst I'm either exercising or walking. That to me is about the height of my ability to multitask. So whenever I'm walking, I will listen to audiobooks. Whenever I'm running, I will listen to audiobooks. The only other time, I said to myself this year, I want to do more self-development than I've ever done before. And when do I tend to learn? Either when I'm in my car or when I'm exercising, be it walking or running. I thought I don't really want to spend a lot of my time in my car, so I need to spend a lot more time running and walking. So there's a secondary benefit there. I'm getting fitter, I'm getting healthier, I'm getting fresh air, but I'm learning at the same time. So I've become a massive advocate of audiobooks and podcasts. There's so much richness to be learned from just successful people. I love to listen to successful people. A few books that I would recommend to everyone, The One Thing by Gary Keller I mentioned earlier, Atomic Habits by James Clear, I absolutely love. I still listen to The Success Principles by Jack Canfield at least once a year, which I'm a massive fan. I've listened to Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, straight through twice. I'm a big fan of that. I do like a little bit of, so he's not to everyone's cup of tea. So obviously The Morning Miracle by Hal Elrod, which I know you're a big advocate of yourself. A little bit of Grant Cardone, the 10X rule every now and again fires me up. Not everyone's cup of tea. I absolutely understand that. But would be some of Tim Ferriss' podcast. Absolutely fantastic. I love listening to Tim Ferriss.
So it's just, there is so much, and I think I want to just stress free information out there as well. You know, like I think we are living in such a, even with everything that's happening, still an amazing time in history, and just there is still so much to be grateful for. Completely. And bringing it back to where we started. And you also said something at the start there where I want to go back to, because you mentioned regret, and regret is something that I never wanted to live with, you know, hence why I moved to Australia, and now I'm on the Gold Coast. And how many people do you see, like when you're coaching, that are scared to take the first step, but then that you did it? So like, what, that whole regret piece, like how do you work around that? 'Cause I think it's just so powerful, like fear versus regret. I mean, you can't have both, right? So how do you go about moving forward without fear and not living a life with regret?
Yeah, first of all, you know, I'm a general manager of a bank at 50, and with everything that goes with that. And then, you know, I leave and I set up my own business, and at day one, you know, there's no revenue, there's no clients, there's no nothing. So I've gone from huge security in a big role to running my own business, got 4 kids, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So people just, I find a lot of people in the mid-30s who believe their life is set. They go, I've got a partner, you know, I've got kids, or I'm thinking about kids, I've got a steady job, we've got a dog, we've got a home loan and all that. And they convince themselves that life is set. And I'm a fundamental believer that we can reinvent ourselves tomorrow. We're massively fortunate that we live in Australia. There's a huge opportunity in this country. And for me, what gave me the confidence and the belief was the high level of self-development, but secondly, following, you know, my winning habits, my winning routines, working through that 7P process. So I didn't just leave and go, what am I going to do now? I was really clear about my business, the services that I was going to offer, the problems I was going to be solving, and how I needed to show up on a daily basis. But when I did it, so many people said to me, I just haven't got that courage. I could never do that. So they've almost convinced themselves. There's one guy, I'll never forget, we were at my youngest daughter's school, and it was a father-daughter breakfast. And he was there, and he was in his suit, and he was 15 minutes into the breakfast, and he's getting anxious. He's looking at his watch, and it's like, you know, I could hear his phone buzzing in his pocket. You could just tell the anxiety that he was almost putting his first meeting and his inbox before that amazing opportunity to spend, and it wasn't a long time, it was just an hour, father and daughter. And he looked at me, and I was in a polo shirt, a pair of shorts, and he goes, I just cannot tell you how much I admire you. He said, I've been in my job so long, I am bored. He said, but I guarantee this time next year, I'll still be here, worried about the meeting, worried about the inbox, worried about the job. And I said, why? And he says, because I just don't have the courage. You know, and I think, again, people just get caught up with a pattern of life. And you just got to find a way to break that pattern. And Mozart time for me is my circuit breaker on a daily basis to really think about what matters most. And everyone, just take the Richard Branson test. You know, sit yourself at 90 years old in that rocking chair, looking back on your life, and you do not want to be saying to yourself, if only, if only, if only. And the unfortunate thing is, so many people, that is how they'll be thinking.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I think when I started my business, you know, I had all the same, exactly what you just said then. You know, I was on a nice salary, I had a home, and I was one of those people who's like, you know, this is it. This could be my life right now. I'm quite comfortable. But exactly the same thing that made me do it was I don't want to get to the end of my life and look back and regret anything. Yeah. And I think that is the key, isn't it, to a lot of taking the first step. You know, putting yourself in the future and go, what would my future self say? What would my future self do? So I think that's such a crucial piece right there. And I want to touch upon success as well, because everyone's idea of success is different. And what you just said then about you and your daughter was so beautiful, because I think that, you know, people think, you know, oh, I'll be successful when I've got the house and I've got the car and I've got this and I've got that. How do you define success now in your life?
Yeah, so my chosen affirmation for this year is I am loving being CEO of my own life.
Love it.
And the time and financial freedom that it brings.
Brilliant.
That's what Leona and I, my wife and I, that's what we're really looking for. Time and financial freedom to be the CEO of our own lives, so we can make the choices. So now, because I'm self-employed, I don't make 100% of the activities that I want to do with my kids, but I can make 80, 90% because I have the ability to make so many more choices. And that's what success is to us. You know, we want to travel the world, and not just once. We just want to, when the opportunity allows itself again, but we want experiences. We want travel. So even if we don't have, you know, the level of, you know, and again, after 3 years of being self-employed, we're not that far away, but even if we don't have quite what we had in big jobs in financial services, we just have so much more, you know, and it's not about, it's, you know, when you hit that age and you're in that rocking chair, having this big pile of dollars in the bank that you've never actually used, and you're exhausted because you've just chased, you know, the corporate ladder for so long. Mm-hmm. To me, that's financial wealth, but it's not life wealth necessarily.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. We're completely on the same page there, and I think it's such a powerful question. Like, redefine what success looks like, because I think people think success looks like, you know, businessman or businesswoman, big house, nice car, but a lot of these people are fundamentally unhappy. Their lives aren't their own. They're not spending time with their family, and like you just said, then they might get to the end of their life and look back and go, what was it all for? You totally. Know, and we are very blessed that we do live in a beautiful part of the world, and you know, I do wake up every day and go, I'm very, very grateful.
Likewise.
Yeah.
You know, and how do I have an amazing life?
Yeah.
That to me is the question. A life that gives you happiness, fulfillment. You know, you can live life with gratitude. And there is a percentage of people where they do get that fulfillment from a corporate kind of existence.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if that's you, amazing. Just go and enjoy the hell out of that style of life. But there's so many who are unfulfilled, who are unhappy, who feel trapped. And I just truly believe there's a better way.
Yeah, I totally agree. Andy, where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn. I've got my own YouTube channel, which has a lot of the things we've talked about and a whole pile more. So basically, you know, Andy Fell is Andy Fell Gift 631. You'll find me through YouTube. Find me on LinkedIn. That's my Facebook business page. And What Winners Do. If you just Google What Winners Do, again, you'll find my events brand and my events kind of business as well.
Love it. Final question. If we were about to put a billboard up for the world to see, what message would you want to have on it?
At the moment, it would be Sempre Avanti, which is, well, actually, I'd put two messages on it if I've got to be really, really honest.
That's all right, you have to.
So Sempre Avanti is Italian for always forward. And I believe, you know, what's happened has happened. Or what is happening, but we've all got to move always forward. And the second one would be all in. And, you know, I have this little process that is decide what I'm going to do, commit to doing it. And if I'm not massively committed, I don't even start. So I probably start less and finish more than most people. I see so many things that just fizzle out. People start and then they're not that committed. So decide what I'm going to do, commit to doing it, and then go. And once I go all in. So there you go, Sempre Avanti and all in.
Love it. Andy, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and look forward to hopefully working with you again soon.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much for listening to the Mind to Lead podcast. I really hope you got some great takeaways and key learnings from this episode. To help us spread the message, please give us a rating and leave us a review. We love reading your thoughts and your insights and your learnings. And look, reach out to me. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Georgie Hubbard. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'm Georgie L. Hubbard. Let's connect. I hope you have an incredible day, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon.